All right, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Business Boxing Club. I'm your host, Ray the Business. Welcome back to the club. Let me plug in my microphone right here for you guys. We got mic check. We got episode 25 of the Business Boxing Club coming down right now, and today we are going to talk about boxing. Boom. There we go. That should be a little more crisp. But yeah, today we're going to be talking about boxing. We're going to be talking about the real only fight that I care about that went down over the weekend, and that was Junior Makabu, the WBC Cruiserweight Champion that not many, very many people knew before a couple months ago, before that WBC convention. He had a rematch with Michunu. I'm sorry if I'm butchering that name, but he had a rematch that went down. A little bit of controversy in that. We're going to talk about, is that Canelo's next fight? We're going to talk about some big news potential news in the light heavyweight division. And we're going to be talking about, is Canelo looking to make a move to the light heavyweight division? So that's what I got planned for y'all today. Let's get it started. First of all, we had a big fight go down. Junior Makabu taking on a rematch against Michunu. I guess both guys fight out of South Africa, they were saying, but for whatever reason, this fight was over in, I don't know where it was. It was Youngstown, Ohio or something. I don't even know if that's a city in Ohio, but it was somewhere random in Ohio. And I've been to local boxing fights that look like they were bigger events than this. And this was the WBC Cruiserweight Championship of the world. This was the fight that Canelo's trainer went to the convention to petition for. And this fight was so low key. So I have a few things to say about that. But first, let me join in my co-host for the evening, Mr. King Amin of Essex. What's going on, my man? Can you hear me? I think you're on mute.
There we go. Here we are.
He is. What's up, my man? How you doing tonight?
I can't complain, man. I like the topics. I appreciate you, throwing me a bone, man, because I definitely got something to sink in on these two topics, brother. For real.
Yeah, definitely saw I saw you talking some boxing over the weekend on Instagram, so I wanted to chat with you about this. First of all, let me just tell you, welcome to the Business Boxing Club. I appreciate you coming on here. This is my channel. Looking to grow this one a little bit more, so I definitely appreciate the correspondent appearance this evening. So let's get into it, man. Makabu versus Michunu. Is that how you say that?
Yeah, man. And listen, if you see it on IG, don't forget to check me out on King Amin of Essex 1 on Instagram. I really took the time to pronounce his name. It's Tabiso Mchunu.
Tavisu Inchunu.
Yes, right.
Okay,
And
yeah,
I didn't even waste any time trying to pronounce Makabu's name, brother. You get what I'm saying? Because
yeah.
first of all, let's talk about the performance. Because I watched the whole fight top to bottom.
Please, yes.
Yo, Makabu has no hip movement, no pivot, and I know everybody doesn't have to pivot on the lead hook, but I'm just saying, I mean, like very flat-footed. He reminds you of a bigger, slower Rolly, if you can imagine that.
Yeah.
Punch is not even as powerful. Mchunu hit him with the cleaner counter punches. I'm watching the fight and I'm like, damn. And so, the elements are there. Don King is his event. It's a gangster party. Everybody's got leather jackets on, you know what I'm saying? And I'm watching and I'm like, there's no way that they knew Makabu was gonna perform this poorly. I'm guessing that they thought that there would have been some sizzle to it. It's a rematch. But man, it was a really surprising fight, and it was unfortunate to watch it to the end. And if this was any other fight, you would have been like, yo, it was a good scrap. It was nothing on the line, and they could even run it back for a trilogy. Some guys have these like, listen,
Yeah.
Chisora's the king of that, right?
Yep.
But brother, Makabu did not look like he even belongs in the discussion at all. And I mean, I'm not saying it disrespectful as a fighter. I'm saying we were talking about the level of a Canelo. Like, why do we even bring that shit up? The dude would be a walking aqua bag for Canelo.
Yeah, bro. I was thinking about that the whole time. It's because in these past few performances that we've seen of these top champions within the 160 to 200 pound range, they've basically all been Canelo auditions, to be fair. And this one was the highest one in the fact of weight and accomplishment, I guess you could say. But I mean, the least skilled performance, probably the easiest fight maybe for him besides just the weight difference.
Yeah.
But like you said, I saw nothing that made me think that this guy is going to be anything besides a walking aqua bag, because the whole time I go, this guy is just going to be a punching bag. Like, the counters that he was getting hit with were so clean. His movement was non-existent. He was and it was crazy having to hear the commentators make, not excuses for him, but make it seem like he was actually doing something in the fight.
Yeah.
Because I don't know about you, but I don't know that I could give him 3 rounds.
No, and you know, you mentioned the commentators. You know, shout out to Ray Boom Boom Mancini and the other guy, because they did a great job of maybe fooling any casual fan that thought that the fight was anything other than what we saw with our own eyes.
Yeah.
Um, you know, the Trevor Bryan fight was more exciting. You know, if you just want to talk about what was at stake, you know, the toughness, the back and forth, and the rugged nature of the fight. I just thought Mchuno honestly, decisively pulled that fight off,
Agree.
and but I knew it wasn't gonna go his way. I,
Why would you think that? We're at a Don King promotion in the middle of nowhere. Surely there's no shenanigans going on, right?
yeah, I don't know what I was thinking. You know.
And what I'm thinking is I don't want to get my tinfoil hat on, right? But when you think, okay, this is a Don King promotion, these guys should be fighting in a stadium in South Africa or something of that sort. But you could blame it on COVID or whatever you want to blame it on, that you're not going to do that. And possibly let's make it at a smaller venue, a smaller show, because anybody that knows, local boxing or lower level professional boxing knows the shadiness of that business. Do you think maybe Makabu went in there knowing, okay, I've already flatlined this guy before. I've already knocked this guy out before, I should say. And I know what this show is. I already kind of have this in the bag. And that's what maybe led to the poor performance, and him just already with his hands up, like, I know I got this.
Definitely, I could agree to that, and I think looking past an opponent, you know, is the
Yeah.
expression we use. He was
A
looking
little bit
past
of
him.
both.
Yeah, and then you know you saw after the fight, you know he tried to give Mchunu and tried to embrace him, and I think Mchunu was just because he probably said, "Yo, this is some bullshit. Like I
Yeah.
know I'm not gonna win, and I know I beat you.
Yeah.
How dare you?" You know, it was so it was just, and again, you know, those are some interesting elements. The fact that yes, COVID could have affected the venue and all sorts of arrangements for this particular fight, but something tells me that you know this fight, even though what we believe was at stake a title, you know what I'm saying? I think it was harder to sell even for a venue because, I mean, respectfully, they had legends in the house, but those legends weren't in the ring and they definitely could not pack out a gymnasium, for lack of a better expression, a civic center. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? You know, for a title. Now, mind you, we had a blizzard up in Jersey. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
A nor'easter, as we call it. So, Lord knows what it was doing in Ohio. We know weather and COVID could have affected it, but in my mind, I just said, you know, this was not the fight to lure anybody in. No investors, no, not Canelo. Certainly, this was not it. This was just not it.
Yeah, and for a Canelo fight with the price tag being so high on that, you could imagine he would have to take a lower purse in order to make a Makabu fight and do it strictly for the, I mean, just the title, right? So that kind of leads me into, do we think this is going to be Canelo's next fight? Do you think that, because considered, okay, the title is at stake, and I'm not convinced that Makabu's going to win another fight. And if I'm trying to just go for the legacy of, hey, I'm going to scoop up this WBC cruiserweight title for that fifth division, then why not against a walking Aquaback?
Only because we got to pay for it, man. I mean, that undercard would have to be stacked, and then he'd need Bad Bunny walking him out. You know what I
What
mean?
if
It'd
it's
have
on
to
the
be,
zone?
uh, you know, um, I don't know. I will say this.
He's Bad Bunny walking him out.
He does, man. Something.
Yeah.
I say if they had to fight in South Africa, you know what I'm saying? Or I know excuse me, he's from Congo, but I know they're not having a fight in Congo. Forget about that.
No.
At least not right now. But
Yeah.
have the fight overseas somewhere. I mean, Makabu doesn't even have an international crowd, and they had the DNC flag hanging up in the gym in Warren, Ohio. I don't know the
Yeah.
demographics, but I don't know how many Congolese are in Warren, Ohio. You know what I'm saying? It's hard to sell the fight because even when you talked about the guys that we didn't regard as, the UK fighters that he fought, it's a UK audience. He's bringing an entire audience. He has
And they show out
and they show up.
every single time.
If this is Canelo's fight, it doesn't even have, and I'm a bit of a historian. It's not even like David Hay and the real big guy.
What's
Was
his
it
face? But I know you're talking about
Pulev?
the guy who's like the size of Shaq.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or this is not Roy Jones Ruiz. This is just like somebody that we know is too skilled and is a devastating puncher against somebody that does not look equipped. And again, the whole nice guy thing, like he's a really nice guy. So I think the beating would not, fare well because he'd be, trying to touch gloves and shit. Like, nah, man, he would get hurt out there. I think he
He'd
would
be
be hurt.
excited that he's part of the show.
Yes, and that's evidenced by I think
Mhm.
what we saw on Saturday. He was thinking about the show he was going to create should he get the fight with Canelo, and he got caught with some devastating uppercut counters. They were both southpaws, so he was
Yep.
getting hit with those left uppercut on the counter, and I'm just like, yo, this guy has no business in the ring with no Canelo. Now, the interesting thing is, I wish, one of the Charlos, and when I say one of, I really mean Jamal. Shit,
Yeah.
this would be a great, one of the Charlos could just cherry pick this guy. Plant could cherry pick this guy. If anybody wants to do cherry pick fucking Makabu, if you want to make some history right
Yeah,
quick.
exactly. No, but that's what I would bring up on the show is that everybody wants to say all of these other names and then try to hate on Canelo for wanting to do this, but none of them would ever dare do this themselves. They don't even want to move up one division, two divisions, let alone come from 160 originally at 154 as a titleist and then eventually go up to the new 190 limit of cruiserweight. So I don't see that happening. I mean, this is one of those situations for Canelo's next fight. We see, okay, who's he going to fight in May? I'm on record saying that I think the best business to make is the Charlo fight.
Mhm.
It's the biggest fight, it sells the most. I don't think technically that Charlo, in a sort sense of rankings for the sport, deserves that title opportunity based off of his previous opposition over the past, I guess, title reign at 160,
Mhm.
I would say. But I agree that it does make the most sense. Now, would you be more upset at Canelo if he tries to go up, basically pick off this titleist, WBC titleist at 190 instead of fighting a bigger fight like Jamal Charlo?
Yes, I'd be disappointed because at this juncture, it's kind of foregone conclusion that those possibilities are there when he already went up and clipped Kovalev.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? When you go up and you clip a Kovalev, like a legitimately, dangerous puncher and not necessarily a nice guy, which gives us the impression that he ain't coming to lose and he ain't going to be happy about being there.
Yeah.
Versus, a guy like Makabu where, he's a good sportsman, but, Canelo is a prize fighter and he's coming to put on a show. Um, I would be upset because I'd say to myself, let's kind of clear the air too with the Charlo thing because I'm a big fan of the Charlos, but not enough that I think that they can't be beat. Nor am I protecting them in any way in the sense that, I believe they beat whoever they think they can beat.
Yeah.
And if they don't think they can beat the guy, I gotta ask questions. Say, well, shit. I know I'm saying it from the confines of behind the screen, but you tell me why you think you wouldn't fare. And in most fighters, if it's the weight limit, cool. But I think most fighters are capable of going up one division. As a matter of fact, a lot of fighters later in their career, they always go up. Danny Garcia's with an eye in
Most of
154.
the greatest fighters in history, unless they're already heavyweights, I mean, would go up from what 135 to 168 by the end of their career.
Absolutely.
You take Roy Jones, for example, went all the way up to heavyweight,
De La
with that
Hoya.
Ruiz situation. Yeah, De La Hoya moving up to what 160.
Hmm.
And I mean, as of recently, he was getting ready to fight Vitor Belfort, which that would have been a heavyweight fight.
Yeah.
So depending on what he weighs in at, which doesn't necessarily count. I think that would have been an exhibition anyways. He was talking, saying, "Oh, I want it to be a real professional fight." But besides the fact, no, I agree with you. I definitely am. I like the Charlos a lot, and I like the Charlo brand.
Hmm.
They have two fighters working for one brand, which is rare.
Yeah.
So the name has value. The name Charlo, the twin Charlos, especially. I remember back a few years ago when Jermall was the guy catching bodies. Jermell was the one that was getting a lot more of the decisions. A lot of people were hyped up more on Maul than Mel, right? And then he went. I think he won the title first when he
Yeah.
beat who did he beat? K9.
Yep. Bundridge.
Yeah, so he beats K9. He wins the title first, and then I feel once he went up to 160, there was a bit of a shift. I feel like Mel started really going for the kill, and I started, even though he does in the way that a lot of casual boxing fans like to crucify one loss on a record, even though he did have that loss and the other one is undefeated, I'm more of a fan of Mel than I am of Maul in the past 3 to 4 years.
And you know what I think contributes to that? And this is what people they forget about Canelo's legacy. He's done more than just jump around. And with this and Caleb Plant gave him this unification.
Yes.
I think Jermell, even with the loss, he went in and avenged the loss, and then he became the unified.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Unified, undisputed. That has so much cachet. Remember, it's very important, and even Triple G, that's what he was cleaning out. He was cleaning out 160 very well. You know what I'm saying? And that has to mean something. So when you look at Jamal and you say, yeah, he's held the belts and he's beat some guys, but you say he didn't hardly do at 160 as he did at 154, and he damn sure didn't do what his brother did at 160, what his brother did at 54. So he's kind of like, what really is your legacy other than having moved up?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? To that point, still, I think that Jermell will still get more recognition should he move up to 160, because they'll say, yeah, he was a former undisputed.
Mm-hmm.
Versus, he got the belt, he won and was a champion at 154, and then became a champion at 160. It doesn't have that automatic two division. That two division is just kind of like,
It's the two division. Yeah, it just makes sense. And for me, especially with boxing, the way that the divisions are a lot closer together, there's not that much weight changing in between those divisions. So naturally, as you get older as an athlete, if you stay in one division, I mean, the fact that Triple G has done it his whole career is very surprising.
Mm.
Something that I kind of agree that he doesn't get, I guess, criticism for, really. I don't see where, you got somebody like Canelo jumping up and down and winning all of these titles, but Triple G stayed at 160. He's never talked about trying to fight Andre Ward at 168, never talked about making these big fights. But I guess to my point is, for the two-time division, if you're an elite level boxer, then that's kind of a natural progression.
Sure.
But to go in and try to capture that greatness of winning all those titles and unifying and at least attempting undisputed like he has and now is going for again after that draw, I think that does have a lot more weight, especially in the past couple years, now that we're seeing more undisputed champions, because I think that's what the market is kind of demanding. A couple years ago, the market was demanding that Floyd style of your O means so much.
Sure.
Now I think we're taking the weight finally off of that O, saying, hey, we want exciting fights and we want the fights that mean the most for the sport. And what means the most is capturing all those titles.
And it's a little bit of Marvel in it, in that it's some Infinity Gauntlet shit. You know what I
Yep,
mean? All them gyms out there, eventually we need them in that one grip. So, the WBA is perverted as far as spreading out belts like STDs. The WBO is monogamous with Top Rank. So you got these belts in different places, and it is very unique to get them in one place. So that's why, unifications, even not undisputed, if you can get three, you know what I mean? Two or three, it says a lot, because it also ensures that you would have fought somebody that is, on the level of a title holder. You know what I'm saying? Even if it's
absolutely.
an interim type situation, that idea of beating the man, well, there's a man you had to beat because he either had the position or the actual title. So yeah, man.
Yeah, and that kind of plays off of your point about Maul, when the fact that he hasn't unified. So when you unify, now I can't sit here and pick apart your resume,
There you go.
right? Like we can to Maul. We could look at Maul's box rec and go, okay, Dennis Hogan, cool story.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Montiel, all right, cool. Right. But when you look at Mel and you're like, damn, he knocked out Banana with a double jab to the body,
Yeah.
up and then down, and then had him convulsing on the kid. Like, to me, that was like, damn, all right. So I definitely agree with you on that. And not to just sit here and shit on Jamal Charlo, but the way that he won the WBC title also almost has a half an asterisk, in the sense that he was elevated
Yeah.
instead of winning the title. And people could say like, "Oh, Canelo ducked him, this and that." I think that at the time with Canelo's deal with DAZN, that was almost an impossible negotiation to go into. So why even do it? But I don't know, man. I think that I would like to see that fight just so everyone will shut up about it. But if I'm Canelo and his team, I'm putting public pressure on Jamal and his team to say, "Hey, I'll fight you next, but you got to go fight one of these guys at 168.
Yeah.
You got to fight Plant, who should be available, or the winner is Benavidez versus Lemieux. That's official. That's happening."
It's looking like it. I don't know if we got word, but it's looking like it's almost done.
Yeah. So maybe the winner of that fight too, because I don't know that Benavidez even is next in line for that 68. I guess maybe they can fight for a title eliminator or a WBC interim title.
And you know what? I'll give Canelo. Excuse me. I'll give I'm going to say give Canelo a softball. I think he's had quite a few of those. But I'll give Jamal a softball. You know what? You know who I'd give him? I'd give him Uzcategui.
Uzcategui. Yeah, I
Right?
mean,
Because I don't want to throw him in there with a killer at 68 just to prove he could go in there with Canelo. Because what I think is, now, I'm not big on the business side of it. Like, I understand it, but it's just too much for me. I call it A-side slut talk. I hate it, right?
mhm.
Um, but I do understand you got to set yourself up now. With a loss, Charlo and Plant can still have their day. He could still go up and say, hey, I still got unfinished business with Benavidez. He could still do a lot. Because remember, when you lose to a guy like Canelo, you lose to a guy like Floyd, that's going to fucking federal prison and coming out a monster if you choose to continue in crime.
Yep.
And so I'm just saying, give him a Uzcategui, because a common opponent with Plant, and he's been known to have some power. We definitely know he's durable.
A
You know what I'm
former
saying?
champion as
Former
well.
champion. Let Charlo get a Uzcategui and then give him Canelo. And if he has any trouble with Uzcategui, I'm sure Ronnie will say, you know what? We ain't worried about that no more.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I agree. I like that, and it'll be a good fight for 168. But for me, man, I feel like what boxing needs for the sport and for the casual fans is we just need the hardest fights right away, and that will really elevate it, man. Because I'm a fan of the UFC and mixed martial arts as well, and what they're doing over there. And we've had this conversation of they're just matching up and they're letting the cream rise to the top right away. There's no softballs. There's no tune up fights, nothing like that. And I feel like if we see something like that similarly in boxing, the respect level for these fighters will shoot up even higher. But then you get into the, you know, damn, do we want to put him in a tough fight against a David Benavidez, against the Caleb Plant? But at the same time, we hold Canelo to a much higher standard. So if you want to be on the same level as Canelo and share the same stage, then elevate yourself to that standard. So I feel a little bit into both sides of that argument.
Because for me, and it's obviously a great fight, but you got to figure the logistics of getting adjusted to the weight,
Yeah,
building yourself to be able to be confident that you got all your tools if you move up. Because remember, it's only 8 pounds, but for him, he may not necessarily feel quicker or stronger with that extra 8. Shit,
yeah.
he may feel like a fucking sledgehammer with it. We don't know, but for fighters is uh, uh, creatures of habit. So that little, thrown off could be something for him. And again, Uzcategui is more than a tough enough test that now again, your first time you step up. Now that reminds me of Christy
And
Martin.
even Canelo had his step up at 168 and just one of his extra credit dates when he fought in December of 2018. He
Yeah,
did that Rocky Fielding fight, and on paper we saw the height difference. We're like, wow, this looks crazy. But that was exactly what you're saying. I feel like it was just a hey, let me get accustomed to this weight and see what's going on here at 168. How do I feel?
yeah, and I think if that happened, but again, I think to your point about it shifting from the Mayweather school of marketing, we're no longer marketing O's.
Yeah,
We can definitely market, the pride of the challenge and that you took that challenge. You know what I'm saying? I just when it comes down to it, funny thing you mentioned MMA. Me and my wife, we were watching the I don't pronounce it, but I know Francis Ngannou
Francis Ngannou.
in
Yeah,
Gagne, right. My wife is like, how much those guys getting paid? 600 grand, you know what I'm saying, for
yeah,
5 minutes of bestiality, pause, right? Versus Gary Russell, I don't know if he got a mill, but he might have got mill with one shoulder. I'm sure he was in pain, but that's what the fighters and the boxers are trying to do. They're really trying to set themselves up to say, hey, I gotta get everything I can. Now
hmm,
there's a chance too, because we seeing it with Dillian White. He's going to take what's considered short money because it's Tyson Fury and the marketability that comes from that. So fighters really have to discern whether they need that upfront bag and they're just truly concerned about the money that they'll get upfront, a $10 million purse, $12 million purse to fight Canelo, or if they're like, something, I'm gonna hold off on that. I'm gonna make 5 million here. I make another, 7 million, and then I'm ready. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
The business of it, I can't tell nobody how to go get it. But what I can say, I think there's room for both. I think there's room for both, especially if somebody like Canelo says, something, I ain't got to make 40. I'll take 30. I'll take
Yeah,
28. I'll take 28 if I really want to make the fight happen in a location that I'm really interested in.
yeah, and especially working our way back to that Makabu fight. If that's truly the next fight for him, if he decides to go, hey Eddie, represent me on this one. Speaking of Eddie Hearn,
Hmm.
Eddie Hearn represent me. If these Saudis out there that Eddie Hearn is cool with decide, hey, we want a front row, show to Canelo, and they do that fight in Abu Dhabi, Saudi Arabia, or even they could do it in South Africa, something like that. Canelo's been talking about going international. Then that's a possibility. And then I do think he would have to take a lower pay cut, but maybe he could. And in the interim, Charlo could do exactly what you're talking about. He could fight Uzcategui. And then if there's even more time in between him and a potential Canelo fight with a win over Uzcategui, then you can set up another big fight against Plant, Benavidez, especially with Plant, like you were talking about, we're not marketing that O anymore. I am a firm believer. I think Plant's next fight is going to be huge, and
Hmm.
I think he won a lot of fans and gained a lot of stock with that loss.
Definitely, definitely, and I think somebody like Plant, the way he came into that fight, he won more fans in defeat. And, people make their little funny, whatever about the conversation that was had, but
Yeah,
he's in the conversation and literally in a conversation with Canelo in the ring. If he wanted to, he doesn't have to do another thing ever again, but he's a prize fighter. And so we know about that. I like to call it that rub. Ain't no telling what kind of rub he got from fighting with Canelo,
Hmm.
and maybe even deeper conversations, phone calls. Hey, champ, when you hit me with that shit, keep your hand up because you might could throw it in. Just to, you have a respect for somebody, with your opponent sometimes when you go through that battle. So I think that would give him the confidence to fight like whoever. He gonna be like, I just came out the ring with Canelo. I don't give a fuck who you put in front of me.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? That experience is invaluable, I would say. I mean, we saw exactly in the case of Canelo when he fought Floyd Mayweather. He definitely got the rub of Floyd
Mm,
and picked up a lot of new tricks in that. But there's something about Canelo, right? We're talking about Canelo and we're talking about fights at 168 and we're talking about fights at cruiserweight. But what we're not hitting is a huge possibility in a chunk of opponents and champions at 175. And
yeah.
I want to share some news I saw. I think this was from today. Bob Arum's favorite reporter, Mike Coppinger. Can you see the screen?
Yep.
Let's check this out. Mike Coppinger says sources Artur Beterbiev and Joe Smith Jr. are closing in on a deal for a light heavyweight title unification this summer in New York on ESPN. The holdup is on Smith's side. Star Boxing offered him 1.5. He's looking for 1.8. I'm not really worried about that second half because I feel like 300K, they'll make that fight happen. But I really like this fight. I think this is the fight that needed to happen, especially with both of those guys fighting on ESPN. I felt like that was an easy unification to make, and I'm glad it's happening for the sport. How do you feel about this fight?
I definitely like this fight. Joe Smith, he need that extra 300K so he get them taxes paid on that. You know what I mean? So he can have
Yep.
more to go around. So they got to give him that or cut a side deal where they just pay them taxes for him, right? So
Yeah.
the key is he's trying to get paid because this is a fight worth taking. And chances are, I could see this happen in Montreal. I could see this fight happening in Canada because, in New York, I don't know that Better Beef is a draw. And I don't know that Smith is necessarily enough of a draw. But you do figure Canada is very, close-ish. I mean, you get people that drive to, 6 hours to Toronto. I think maybe 5.5 to
I don't know. Aren't they
Montreal.
blocking all the roads right now or something? They got
I don't.
something going on up there. But
Yeah.
are they doing fights in Canada?
I mean, they just did Marcus Brown and Better Beef. So
Oh, okay, they did. You're right. Yeah. So how much did that sell? Do you know any of the numbers on that?
no, no. But the fact that they had it, is
Hmm.
like it says to me that if the fight was big enough. And Better Beef seems to be a big enough draw. I mean, shit, they had John Pascal. Listen, they had the Bridgerweight fight with Rivas and Ryan Rozicki in
That
Canada.
was in Canada.
Yeah, a couple months ago.
Oh wow.
So fights are definitely happening in Canada. I think if it's big enough, and I think Arthur Beterbiev has made it his adopted home in Montreal. Like I said, Joe Smith, unless they find a way to have that in Madison Square Garden, which I could see your point. If they're closing everything out, who isn't going to come to New York City, Madison
Yeah.
Square Garden? So you know,
I think that's definitely what they're I mean, especially if they say New York, they're probably not going to the Barclays. I could imagine they're going Madison Square Garden with that. And that would be huge, especially if somehow they can market it in the sense of I don't know how they would do it, but basically say, hey, this could be Canelo's next fight or like something. If you attach it to Canelo or just get the personalities on ESPN to when they talk about this fight, also talk about Canelo. You get Stephen A talking up there, all of these guys that are covering it. I think it makes it a really big fight because when you're talking about okay, we're unifying, we're collecting these infinity stones. I like the fact that they're collecting all of these right here, and it's going to be ready for Canelo to just step in and take them all in less steps than he had to in order to conquer 168.
and you know what that does? Immediately. Now walk with me for a second. Close your eyes. Put on the blindfold. I'm gonna surprise you. What happens is Charlo takes the Uzgatigi fight. Then he fights Plant because Canelo's going to chill out and take the winner of this fight. I see those things being able to work out. It's more in-house. Canelo's the free agent ish, and he's willing to do business with anybody. You know what I'm saying? I could see it playing out that way. The Charlo fight doesn't happen, or if it does, that's his swan dive. You know what I'm saying? If Canelo, and again, projecting it out here. Suppose Charlo goes from Uzgatigi to Plant. Plant wins, rematch with Canelo. If Charlo wins, then you got, you know what I mean, that guy. I think, that series of events, if it plays out that way, we can build them later. You and I will build them later. You write up the contract. And Todd DeBuff, he'll sign a check, but that satisfies boxing fans. It satisfies the title situation, and I think you still got fights left over after that.
Yeah, I definitely like that. I like that if Canelo doesn't go with basically another PBC fight, which
Hmm.
we agree would be the Charlo fight
Yeah.
within either the May date, or it looks like the September date is most likely his two dates for this year, unless he's planning on fighting three times. I don't know if you've heard that.
No, I think he's going two again this year.
Yeah. So if those are his two dates and his next fight isn't with Charlo, I'm cool with that going down on the PBC side of the street, and with that Canelo kind of vibe or cloud hovering over it. And we all know that's kind of that PBC Canelo sweepstakes tournament going on over there on that side of the street.
Yeah.
In the meantime, if I'm taking us on a walk down the street, I think what we have here is, or let me ask you, if that's the case, then who does Canelo fight in May? He fights Makabu?
That's a good question. Now, if he has to fight in May, damn, does he fight Makabe? Yeah, he does. Because unless, again, if he fights Charlo in May, boy, oh boy, everybody just got to shut the fuck up and just really embrace it, take it in. I mean, my God, would we not lose our minds from here to May? Now, mind you, just in April, we would have had Serrano and Taylor, you know what I'm saying? And we'd have Shakur and Valdez if Valdez punk ass can sign the contract. But can you imagine in May, then we have Canelo and Charlo?
The next
I mean,
week.
oh my God, our minds would explode, man.
Oh yeah, dude. I'm with you on that, man. I think it would be nuts. But I guess, I mean, I don't know how much truth was to that report of, or the tweet of, boxing fans or boxing hardcore fans won't like Canelo's next fight. This is what I say. If this fight here goes down between Artur Beterbiev and Joe Smith Jr., that is a unification of the WBC, the IBF, which is already unified, along with the WBO championship as well. And there's only one piece that we're missing. And for Canelo, that's easy business.
Hmm.
If he goes over and fights Bivol. And that's a fight that I don't think people would be very happy with. But if you're looking for that undisputed fight, then that's the easiest route right there. You go in, you fight Bivol, you take care of Bivol, which is still a difficult fight, but you take care of that, and then you go in against the winner of this fight. And I think the question is, if he does that route right there, what I just laid out, two fights that would see him undisputed at 175, does he win both of those fights? And I think there's a two-part question in that is, who do you think wins this fight between Beterbiev and Joe Smith? And then if Canelo beats Bivol, does he beat the winner of that as well?
Well, Canelo, I definitely think he's smart enough to allow Smith and Better Beef to beat each other up, so he'd have a better sense. Look at all these damn B's, all these consonants, man. He'd have a much better sense of either of his opponents. You know what I'm saying? He's definitely just, watching. Now, Better Beef wins. If Joe Smith fought the way he just fought my man, the Haitian cat from Miami, it's gonna be an early night. Early
Yeah,
night.
I agree with you on that.
Steve Gaffard is the gentleman's name.
Yep.
But I think Canelo doesn't really have any issues with Bivol. I'm just really certain that Canelo is right now probably he the best out. You know what I'm saying? He's the best out, and a lot of those guys are very, very good. But we can't distinguish who they are or where they land until they get in there with Canelo. And if he's willing to step up to fight them, that already says a lot. You know what I'm saying? As far as what he's willing to do, and like you said, there's a lot of guys that's not even willing to go up one division.
Yep.
So for him to do that, yeah, I think eventually he'll end up undisputed at 175 because the Bivol fight doesn't seem as dangerous to me as some might think, and I think it doesn't matter who wins. But even if Better Beef wins, Better Beef, unless it's a real short night for Smith, Better Beef doesn't have any better chance, than the other guys.
Yeah, I think that if we agree that Better Beef will beat up Joe Smith, especially based off of that last performance, then I think the Canelo versus B-ball fight is possibly just as dangerous for him in the sense that he may, I guess, his chances of winning
Mm,
as a Better BF fight in two different styles because we know what Better BF is bringing to the table, but Bivol on his best night is a very difficult fighter to deal with,
yeah.
and I think people sleep on that because he's not as exciting of a performer. People try to say he's like the 175 Boo Boo in the sense that people just don't want to watch him fight. They think his style is boring, and these are what I've seen on the internet. But when he's turned on, I think he looks great. In his last couple performances, for example, the Craig Richards fight,
Hmm.
that wasn't a very high profile fight. He looked very good, I thought, and technically sound for the first six. The last six, I thought Canelo, takes him on a walk through the park.
And those are the types of nuances to where Canelo sets himself apart from the rest. Now, Bivol, I actually likened him to Mikey Garcia, not my, yeah, Mikey Garcia. The length of his arms, it's just kind of that short arm, kind of swing and punch. It looks like it's looping, but it's thrown pretty good.
Yeah,
But I just don't think that a guy like him can stand there and Canelo's in the pocket. He's rolling. He's catching it on his shoulder. He's catching it on his hip, and then he's delivering them body shots. Like Canelo will walk you down to deliver body shots. And I don't know what he does. I ain't been in his head, but it would seem as though Canelo's not often or always worried about getting hit in the beard.
yeah.
Yeah, he
I
just
mean,
doesn't.
he almost has he almost has a spider sense in the sense that as soon as the punch comes right here, he
Yes, he can
starts
turn you.
rolling with it. He sees every
Yes.
punch coming and he sees it not in slow motion, but just with enough that he's able to react and roll with those punches so well. I mean, when was the last time we saw Canelo actually get really, really hit clean? Maybe Danny Jacobs?
Yeah, and maybe Plant was jabbing most. I think he landed a
Well,
couple good shots.
yeah, he was landing some good counter pop shots and whatnot, with that, especially with that roll counter right. But I didn't think that I guess my question is as far as, hey, I'm trying to put you out with this shot. When have we seen Canelo be hit with a shot like that? And it's been quite a while because I would even argue when Danny Jacobs landed on him, I thought he was rolling that one too. It just landed a little bit more.
And Triple G's most effective punch was his jab all night long.
Yeah,
So I can't even say, but he did when he hit Canelo. But Canelo, and he's evolved so much since that Triple G fight.
that first
Like
one.
that's the fight I don't want to see, and I'm glad we didn't bring that up. And I only bring it up just to toss it in a basura.
You think I'm that much of a casual?
Man,
I'm gonna bring up Triple G3. I mean, I think it's a fight that could be marketed, especially to casuals, because I'm the one that says casuals are the ones that pay.
yeah.
They're the ones that buy the fight. So I mean, if we're gonna do that fight, the time is now. Get it out of the way. But I think everybody knows what's gonna happen in that fight, and it's not gonna be good for Triple G.
Because Triple G, there's no way Triple G fights at 168 against Canelo. He's gonna, you know what I'm saying? Like, no,
He,
that's a death wish. And Canelo, what's the point of coming down to 60 for this guy?
nah,
No. So no, thank you. But yeah, Canelo, he undisputes at 165, and I think that all that movement we're talking about, he's gonna be a different Canelo because it's like I'm sure he downloaded a lot from his experience with Plant, no matter what people thought the level of Plant was on. Plant bought some tools and some skills, and he gave a great effort. But I'm sure Canelo downloaded some tips from that, and he's just gonna implement it. Like he just is a very evolutionary. type of fighter. He definitely evolves every fight.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Man, so this is, I mean, basically, this brings four different fights. If he goes to undisputed at 175, then he has to fight these two specific fights, and that basically plugs him up for the year. We That doesn't give us a Makabu fight, and that definitely doesn't give us a Charlo fight because I think if he moves up to Makabu, if he moves up to go for 175, if he moves up at all, it's a less of a chance that he's going to go back to 168.
Yeah.
So I mean, what do you think could happen? Do you think that I mean, what's the timeline play out for this? Because I'm trying to think even in my head, okay, if we completely abandon the Charlo thing, maybe even leave it for next year, let that whole um PBC thing square itself away, and then Canelo could eventually go back down to 168, which is even a weird concept saying compared to a couple years ago when people tried to say he was scared to go up to 160. Now I'm talking about him going down, being able to go down to 168. But if he says, "Hey, in May I'm gonna fight Makabu, I'm gonna make history with that. In September I'm gonna fight on DAZN again. I'm gonna fight Bivol, and then I'll squeeze in an extra date like I did in 2018, and I'll fight in December on ESPN pay per view."
If he does that, he doesn't ever have to fight again. You
And you know
know,
what's gonna be crazy is that we're still gonna be on the Boxing Voice radio, hearing people call in talking about, "Yo, he's ducking Charlo. He's been ducking Charlo all year."
Charlo may wipe the sweat off his brow and say, "Whoo, this guy moved to 175 and he ain't coming back. I'm about to run wild at 68." And then
Yep.
that still leaves Benavidez in plant for him. So, Canelo, look how the universe revolves around this man.
Yeah. He is the sun.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, everybody's revolving around him, but being the sun, you shine the brightest. You are the biggest entity in there, so it just holds him to that different standard. And I think that's kind of, goes to the points we were making earlier. I just want to see other fighters, I guess, held to a little bit more of the standard in the sense of, hey, y'all got to fight the best. And I know that the boxing is very unique in the sense that it's a sport, but it's also equally a business. And the way we commingle those two factors sometimes doesn't work out the best for the fans. But I think if the business wants to continue in a productive way, and if it wants to, continue moving forward, um, I guess if you put it in a line graph, continue increasing revenue and whatnot, and not be on a decline. I think that it really has to come down to giving the fans what they want to see. Last year was a really good year for the fans, but I still think there was a lot of fights that were like the B fight. It wasn't the A fight that we wanted. It was the B fight. For example, Terrence Crawford versus Earl Spence. That's the fight we wanted. We got
Absolutely.
Terrence Crawford versus Sean Porter, which is a great fight, and no, everyone was happy about that. But at the end of the day, was it the fight that we wanted to see?
No, definitely not. But these things are incremental steps because we finally got this whole other side of the street. Again, I'm a wrestling fan, so it's like when you see Kenny Omega showing up on Impact, you know what I'm saying? Mickey James showing up in WWE. We finally got to see these people acting like the other guy doesn't exist.
Yeah,
So cool, but now we need to build on that because one time is an aberration. I could have seen a ghost. I could not. But if I keep hearing a knock on the door and ain't nobody outside, then the shit is haunted. I want this place to be haunted. I want to see regular occurrences, like you said, of the best fights. And, the business part, let me just say this for those that are watching that might not know this. Boxing is so um business oriented that as a fighter you are responsible for selling tickets, you are responsible for being a draw. So when we talk about these numbers and they matter and so on and so forth, they really do, because a fighter has to say, hey, I got to be able to get a couple hundred or so of my friends to come to the fights and spend money and wear t-shirts and make noise, and then get myself to the point to where that's a foregone conclusion. I can expect strangers to want to attend my fights.
yeah,
This is what fighters have to build through and to. So this is not not cavalier for us to say, matching with this guy, matching with this guy. We wish it could be. But the thing about us boxing, we're passionate about this. We know how to, I guess, identify, like you're saying, right, the best of the best. So, okay, cool. We got, Porter and Crawford and, but we know we wanted Spence.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? We know we wanted Spence and Crawford, and this is the pressure. These little whispers become a collective roar. And so
Yeah.
I've said it myself. I think Earl Spence is a Jamaican. You know what I'm saying? It's my brethren of them, but still, man, see a duck if him no fight. You know what I'm saying? Like, you got to do what you got to do. Like, I can't hide him because he's Jamaican. What do you want me to do, right? He's got to fight
Yeah,
Bud
man.
Crawford.
Yeah, my man Big Shaq says when the ting went quack, 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 you mans was ducking. So, once you hear, like you said, you hear one quack, you hear two quacks. It's like the ghost in the house. You hear, all right, I thought I saw a ghost. Once it continues forward like that. So I'm definitely, excited about Terrence Crawford hopefully making a deal with PBC, getting that going on. But that's where I just, I feel like there's going to eventually have to be pressure in the market
Mhm,
for people to start working this other side of the street thing out a
mhm.
lot more. You know what I mean? I can't hear Leonard Ellerby say things like, oh, we're just going to fight guys on our side
Definitely can't.
when the top fights are not on your side. So these are things that, hopefully we see in the next year, 2 years of boxing. And I think it's really moving in that direction.
And you know what helps? This platforms like this, guys
Mhm.
like you, guys like me, the boxing voice. Shout out to all these guys because Doomy, we're everybody that has an opinion and an investment. So we're not just running our mouths. We're creating content. We're speaking, to as each other and kind of galvanizing that. We like them truckers in Canada. You know what I'm saying? So Leonard Ellerby keep talking crazy. Who knows? We might just be out at the MGM protesting,
We're gonna be lined
Tank
out
Davis.
front, honking our horns out there.
Hey, listen, because I was disappointed that we'll talk about it for another day. I'm disappointed that Tank and Rolly is happening. I
Yeah,
don't care about the the outside the ring to chitter chatter. Like I said, when it comes to technique, even if we think that Tank has been held back or holding back, well, we know Rolly's probably reached his ceiling. So it's the guy that's been held back, right? So you got the souped up, you know what I'm saying? Mitsubishi versus the Ferrari, and it's Mitsubishi's is ill, but you know what I mean? Like, it's a Ferrari, a stock
yeah,
Ferrari. We ain't even put it in third on your
yeah.
ass.
The Mitsubishi's already souped up to its fullest potential, and I mean, to touch on that real quick. But yeah, we could go down that rabbit hole another time, and I'd like to. But I agree with you, man. I wasn't excited when I saw the Rolly thing, but I saw it coming from a mile away, so I wasn't even disappointed. I knew that this was what they were doing from the get go, and if I put on my tin hat, I might think that's what they were doing before they even pulled him out of the fight.
Mm,
Was to sell us another pay-per-view, make some sort of a dialogue or some sort of, like a story behind it and whatnot. But eventually it's going to be one of those things where I know there's a lot of Tank fans and I feel bad for the Tank fans because I can tell they're frustrated that this kind of thing is happening and that they still have to continue to justify him being the best by the eye test
sure,
solely.
sure,
Yeah,
sure.
definitely. But like I said, man, I think boxing is moving in a good direction. We'll definitely continue talking about it. In the meantime, man, I appreciate you coming on my program on here. I'm definitely trying to grow this. I've separated this channel from my other podcast that we're all collected together. So you'll definitely see me pushing this on Instagram. We can shout out your Instagram right here, King Amin of SX1. Make sure you guys
Definitely.
go follow this guy. Any last words to say?
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. And listen, man, definitely we got to continue to build on these discussions and continue to be the collective voice, man. You know what I'm saying? Because boxing needs guys like us that have no investment other than our passion.
Yep.
That's it.
Yeah, man, I agree because if nobody's putting pressure on these guys, then they're just going to continue to do the same thing they've been doing for The past what, 50 years, 50 plus?
And so we're guardians of this boxing galaxy right now, brother.
Exactly, man. Exactly. I'm the Star Lord of boxing. But
Understood.
my man, I appreciate it. Thank you. Until next time.
Next time, brother. Peace.